All right, I am pumped as always to welcome the Hall of Famer John Smoltz and to Flippin' Match. John, how are we doing this week?
We're doing great, and I'll tell you what. The We talk about it all the time, but the playoffs scheduling, as far as the teams that are positioning, it is going to get chaotic in the last
Yeah,
2 weeks.
absolutely. It is. We're getting close to September. A lot of playoff teams involved. It is already a little chaotic. So I want to start this week with something that came out publicly that Major League Baseball is looking into. It's not officially going to be a rule. I don't even know if it's close to that, but it was talked about a six-inning minimum for a starting pitcher rule. That the starting pitcher has to go at least 6 innings, or that you might lose your DH. Obviously, there are some caveats to that. 100 pitches, four or more earned runs, an injury, all sorts of things could make that, you don't have to go 6 innings. But as a whole, want to get your thoughts on that, the thought behind what Major League Baseball is doing, having starting pitchers go later into games.
Well, and that's going to be the thing, right? That's the thing we got to decide philosophically. How do you mandate certain things, or how do you encourage a philosophical shift in the game? And that's one way to do it. There's going to be all kinds of ways to work around a rule. Everyone's going to try to find a different advantage. And I think the biggest thing about any rule that you come out with, nobody has a disadvantage. That's the beauty of any rule that you come out with. Everyone has the same chance to
Yep.
navigate that in a way to make it their advantage or not. And I think that's the one thing when I hear people cry about, oh, how can you do this or how can you do that? No one has a disadvantage. And that's what it's up to the club to make the disciplined choices to adhere to whatever the new rule is or take advantage of it. And you've
Yeah.
seen teams already do that in the other rules and how they're taking advantage of stolen bases,
Yep.
pitch clock, you name it. So I think it's a lot of noise, but not a lot of clamor when it comes to teams are just going to play within the rules they've been
Yeah.
given. And I can tell you that the pitching is something that a lot of people are concerned about.
Do you like it? Do you like the thought of having pitchers go deeper into games, or at least having a rule that doesn't force them to do it, but really incentivizes them to go at least 6 innings in a game?
I like anything that's going to get us away from throwing 7 to 8 pitchers per game. I mean, I'm for anything that's going to keep pitchers healthier. We've already talked about this, that this is not keeping pitchers healthier. I wouldn't say a word to anybody if the game was healthier from the arm standpoint, even if they use 7 guys a game.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing that we got to figure out. Like, we're asking pitchers to do things that's just impossible. And we're losing the ability to have stars and matchups and all the things that used to be part of the game. And other sports have done it. Like, they've made rule changes to keep their stars in the game and to keep them healthy. So this is no different. And I think we would be better served if we can get on the other end of, let's just not have 9 different guys pitch 1 inning at a game. And we're trending towards that in situations. So I hope they can find a happy medium.
There's zero evidence that points to pitchers throwing less and less arm injuries and all that. We've discussed it a million times, and we discussed Paul Skeens a little last week, but didn't, there's talks of people saying he should shut him down. And again, I don't understand. There's literally zero evidence that points to, if you shut a pitcher down before the year ends to save his arm, it helps in the long run. In fact, you could argue the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll find some way to get the game moving in the direction where philosophically they go into the minor leagues and ask pitchers to do things differently. This won't be an overnight, like next year or 2 years. It's going to take
Right.
some time to take the shift away from the current usage of pitchers.
Yeah. All right, John, let's talk New York Yankees. Obviously, a very good team this year, one of the best records in all of baseball. Added Juan Soto to the lineup. That's been huge for them. That's the biggest reason for their big turnaround this year. But what I want to ask you is, do you think the New York Yankees, with Soto and Judge, do you think they're going to be enough for the New York Yankees come playoff time? I mean, they have bullpen struggles, they have starting pitching depth struggles. Do you think the Yankees are good enough to win it all this year?
Right now, they're vulnerable, and every team goes through it. They got to shore up that bullpen. There's no doubt about it. They got to
Yeah.
get somebody hot down there that they can trust. They're trying different combinations, and maybe they could have just enough magic at the right time of the year. They have enough offensively, no doubt, but they're going to face a different total strategy when it comes to the postseason. Don't think they're going to pitch too often to Mr. Judge. I
Yeah.
mean, he is going to have to be super patient. The guys behind him are going to have to drive in runs in many cases. And I think that the New York Yankees, for everything that they've done good, they're vulnerable in their bullpen right now. That can get cleaned up. They got a month to do it and some change, but that makes them very vulnerable come postseason time.
That feels like the answer to, I did a radio show the other day and was talking to, it was in Baltimore, and they were asking about the bullpen. And it seems like the answer for these teams that have arms in the bullpen but don't have necessarily a certified closer is just find an arm that'll get hot for you in October and ride that. It doesn't have to be, this is our closer heading into October. You think back on who wins the World Series, somebody out of the bullpen gets hot and becomes an arm that you can rely on in a high leverage situation. And you don't need to have that arm on at the end of August. You need to have that arm at the beginning of October and just have somebody step up and be a dominant bullpen arm.
Yeah, and that's sometimes the difference between a tournament like we have in the playoffs versus the longevity of a
Yep.
season. You want the known commodity over the longevity of a season. And if you got that lockdown guy like the Cleveland Guardians do, or even the Cardinals, or even the Brewers, when they have that guy that comes in and what a job he did the other night. So I think that is the ultimate great feeling for a manager. The worst feeling for a manager is trying to pick and choose and use his gut and go and find a hot guy, but it's not impossible that you can't do it the way you just mentioned.
Yep. John, we're about a month from the trade deadline being done and talking about all the trades that happened. But now that we're about a month removed from that, what team would you say put themselves in a position to, what team, when you look back on that trade deadline, would you say, wow, their moves have really pushed them into a position right where they need to be as we head into September? Who do you think did the best?
Yeah, I mean, there's some sneaky moves right now that are starting to show themselves very valuable that might not have been as noticeable from the beginning. The Milwaukee Brewers and Frankie Montas and even Savali
Yeah.
has given them some length and given them the ability to sustain their lead. I think it's sneaky in the sense that you basically have this situation of my car taking ownership of Sorry about that. That car just decided to shut off. I still think the Baltimore Orioles, have sustained themselves with the things that they needed. Look, Kimbrel has not been great.
Yeah.
So if they didn't make those moves in the postseason for the postseason run with the Dominguez and with everybody else that's involved, the big thing is for the Baltimore Orioles, I think what you have to understand is that they had the most need of any team that is poised to win the postseason. And what I think about the trade deadline, I think about the quantity that they got. And
Yeah.
listen, you're going to end up knowing things very soon
Yeah.
about some of those trade deadline pieces. We talked about somebody getting hot. Maybe Sir Anthony Dominguez gets hot and he becomes a huge piece. We've already talked about, their starting pitching and how much they needed. Their starting pitching was just decimated. So I still think the Baltimore Orioles, a month out, are the biggest winners of the trade deadline.
Yeah, I agree. I think what they did in the bullpen is going to be huge for them down the stretch, and specifically in October. They have some good arms that haven't necessarily figured it out yet, but they're good enough to get it done in October. So, John, always appreciate it. No more no podcasting and driving. All right.
Yeah, always parked, but my car had a mind of its own today.
John, appreciate it, my friend.
You got it.
All right, see ya. All right, just wanted to thank John Smoltz for joining us here on Flippin' Bats, as he does every single week. I'm still up here in northern Michigan, so to be able to make it work with him means a ton, and always means a ton when he joins us here, and hope you all appreciate it as well. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever. Hit that subscribe, follow button, leave us a 5-star review if you feel like it. Also, you can watch everything we do. Flippin' Bats Pod on YouTube. We're on all social media as well, but really appreciate you all for listening. Hope everybody has a great weekend. And until next time, my friends, remember, find your bat and flip it. Peace.